This is NBA Talk. I'm Erik Torenberg, joined by special guest Dan Barto, Head of Player Development at IMG Academy, along with my co-hosts Reuben Torenberg and Frack. Let's dive in.
Yo.
What's up, bro?
We got the gang back together.
What's up, Dan?
There we go. Can you hear me now?
Yes,
Yes,
can
sir.
you hear us?
Yeah, the old volume button. That's the key to life.
Dan,
Good to see you, Dan.
We won the
The
championship.
key to life is actually listen. The key to life is listening to Reuben and betting on the teams that he likes. We'd all be much richer right now if we would have done that 2.5-3 weeks ago.
Let's go, baby.
Reuben's going to take this podcast and turn it into a true DraftKings sponsorship.
FanDuel, come find me.
Reuben picked the Lakers.
That was my one bad pick. That was my one bad pick.
Did you pick the Wolves over the Nuggets?
I did. In 7.
It's still could happen. Let's start there. Well, first off, is it over? I think it's over. But Reuben, do you think the Wolves can come back?
I think right now it's looking bleak. I think they do end up winning this game and taking it to 7, but they just don't have enough to stop Jokic. And I think he's just rolling on such a level right now that I don't think that either Gobert or Towns or Naz Reid is going to be able to really stick with him. And I think that just the knife blow of him doing that spinning running hook for the 4th time is going to get them putting their heads down, and the whole energy is going to get sucked out of the team through it. And I think the Nuggets end up pulling out in 7.
Dan, what are you seeing?
Conley coming back, if he's healthy, makes a difference. I mean, again, Jamal Murray's calf could come back at any second. I mean, we've seen just injuries just decimate this whole playoffs, so it's really hard. I think that Conley defensively is also a little bit of a quarterback, so I think that him being on the court helps in some of the Jokic stuff. Now, whether Gobert or Towns are motivated enough or stoic enough to stick to their guns, refereeing becomes an issue. If they flop twice on Jokic in the first half, I just don't see that happening 2 games in a row. And if Minnesota does prevail and it gets to game 7 and everybody for Denver is healthy, Mike Malone, I just think the extra coaching expertise and the players being there just becomes the ultimate advantage, even on the road.
I do think the discipline matters, right? The discipline to just stick to your guns despite Jokic scoring again and again on you and playing the same level of defense is tough. And I'm not sure Minnesota has that yet.
Yeah, and I mean, probably other people have said it, but like Jokic is literally Tom Brady. I mean, it's like ridiculous. Sometimes, I mean, if you look at the different passes and the way that he just pushes the ball up the floor and just everything is so perfect. I mean, he could have done anything he would have chosen to do, he would be successful in outside of basketball because he just has a processing advantage in every aspect of both seeing things and making decisions. So again, minus Jamal Murray, it's a different story, and I hope the refs don't become an issue. But if he gets in foul trouble or Aaron Gordon gets in foul trouble and Conley's healthy, I think that could make things interesting. I said Denver's offensive prowess would prevail. I'm sticking to it.
What do you think, big bro?
It's funny how I changed my interest over this series. Like at first, Minnesota was up, and then I wanted Denver to come back. I guess I go hot and cold on Minnesota, and then now that Denver's up, I want Minnesota to win. I think I have an underdog streak in me. But in terms of who I think it's got to be Denver. I think the question I'm asking myself is Denver actually favorites to win the championship now? Like, it seems like the safe bet is Denver, Boston, and is Denver just a good matchup because you can put Horford on Jokic, you can put Porzingis on Jokic, you got Gordon on Tatum, as we were saying offline, Reuben.
What do you mean now? They've been the favorites the whole time.
Well, they're looking good. They're looking good in these playoffs, right?
Yeah.
They handily beat the Lakers. They beat, are playing very well right now against a very, very good Wolves team. They're probably going to beat the Mavs or the Thunder handily too. And so,
just for the record, they never blew out the Lakers in any of those games. Don't forget it.
they're just. Do you guys think Nuggets are the favorites to? If you were a betting man right now, forget what you said at the beginning of the playoffs. But if you're a betting man right now, you had to pick one team who's got the highest chance of winning the NBA Finals. Assuming they beat the Wolves, assuming they win this next game or in Game 7, do you think it's the Nuggets, guys?
What do you think, Dan?
I don't love the Nuggets matchup with Dallas.
Really?
I coming off of a 6 or 7 game series here, and again, I'm not saying it's going to be Murray. I just feel like they've been blessed with decent health, and you just can't. They must have the athletic trainer Superman, but with Gafford and PJ Washington and Lively, even though they're young and inexperienced, it just kind of presents a different challenge. I'm sure Jokic will rope-a-dope them on the perimeter. But again, a very focused Kyrie and Luka with a real chance to move on to the finals. I think we would see a different type of Kyrie and Luka that we are starting to see a little bit more this year, and even a little bit more as this series goes on. And as much as I bashed Jason Kidd in our very first pod, there's some chemistry there. So if I was betting man, I would bet against Denver winning the championship, but not strictly because of Dallas. Just the winning basically 8 more games, I think, is going to be very difficult.
And are Celtics still your top pick?
The Celtics are still my top pick, but just like you, I'm souring on them day by day.
Yeah.
Am I missing something? Like, what else? I mean, do you guys? It just feels so hard with all these other teams losing guys left and right. To think that the odds. I mean, just play the statistics of being injury free, and they're not deep enough.
I completely agree. I think there's also every single championship winner has had a little bit of luck. And I think the Celtics are running into quite a bit of playoff luck, right? They're playing the Cavs without Mitchell. They play the Heat without Jimmy Butler. They're either going to play depleted Knicks squad or depleted Pacers squad, who probably shouldn't have been in the conference finals if this were, 9 out of 10 other seasons, because there's no Embiid, there's no Giannis. And I think that their path to the championship is also going to have them fresh. Hopefully Porzingis is going to come back for them. And whoever does make it to the chip, whether it's the Mavs, the Thunder, the Nuggets, the Wolves, they're going to be battered. The West is a bloodbath. So if I were a betting man, I'd also bet on the Celtics.
Let's look at this Mavs Thunder series. This series has really surprised me. I don't know why the Thunder are losing. I thought they were the better team, but Mavs are really stepping up. I guess they're showing the benefits of experience, or vice versa. What are you seeing in this series? I mean, Reuben, you picked the Mavs from the beginning, so you saw it. So
let's go. What a pick! It's not over yet. A lot of series left. I think it's going 7. I think the Thunder squad they're just 1 year too early. I think they're going to win the championship in the next 3 years. I think they're an incredible team with so much depth and also so many picks. And I think all these dudes are studs. SGA, Chet, Jalen Williams, they're awesome. I just think that the Mavs have the best player in the court. Even though he hasn't really been the same Luka that we're accustomed to, although last game we did start to get a little sneak peek of that. I just think the star power of the 2 top guys, along with everybody else playing their roles so well, especially PJ Washington, who I did not predict to play this well. Just I think they're just clicking at the right time, and basketball is a game of momentum, and I think they're riding it.
Dan, what are you seeing?
Again, I think that when you look at Dallas's pedigree, I mean, Luka was a pro at 16. Tim Hardaway Jr. comes from pedigree. The Josh Green won championships here at IMG all the way back. Dwight Powell won championships here. He's on the bench, but two IMG guys have me turning the corner against my Jason Kidd spite. Uh, and I think like PJ Washington, he's a Texas kid. He's back there. It's fun. It's innovative. Derek Lively's mother passing is obviously very unfortunate, but at the same time, what other better motivating factor do you have? And I think when I saw last game, like Luka really toned down the crying and kind of changed his tone with the referees after people have been telling him this probably for 15 years. And Kyrie's on salt. Like when you just see players doing things that they didn't do, you start to wonder if the stars are aligning. And again, defensively, Jared Dudley's helped them, and as from a defensive coordinator standpoint, and you have guys at OKC you don't have to guard. Even Jalen Williams, as good as he's been, they don't really have to guard him. Like you can play way off him and still get a hard contest because he's almost too big now to slice and dice at this level. Like he can't slice and dice Josh Green and some of the subs, and their help is where it needs to be. And as much as OKC in one of the earlier pods I talked about, like they don't shoot a lot of corner threes and they get more slot threes and they get threes in different ways because of their transition. And, they were the best team in the league at attacking the 45 and getting assists out of the high paint. And it's like, the Mavs are just taking good shots because Kyrie and Luka can do whatever they want. And they're committed to getting back, stopping the ball, setting the defensive box, and Oklahoma City hasn't found a dribble handoff or a switch or anything to do. I mean, people are crushing Giddey and Williams a little bit, and Chet's not quite somebody you can throw the ball into the post, but really Dallas deserves all the credit. It's not what Oklahoma City's not doing. It's just that Dallas has all these high IQ winners that are the synergies. Now they believe. Now they actually all believe, and they're like, we might never get this close again. So I'm betting that they're all probably getting 10 hours of sleep and doing all the right. Like that's just what happens when the stars start to align, and that's what happened in Denver the last, couple years as well.
What do you think, Erik?
So again, Luka's health is the only thing that you can put in question because Oklahoma City doesn't have anybody on that bench that's going to come in, and as soon as you go away from Lou Dort or Jalen Williams, then their defense just shrinks down to basically three players on the court. Like
maybe Case and Wallace.
I mean, but he's out there, and I think he's a winner, and I think that he's a better option, but he doesn't have the move and go and attacking that their offense is dependent upon. He's a recipient guy. They don't have a second guy that's been able to get downhill.
I'm glad Dan mentioned that. If Dan hadn't mentioned the sort of stats around some of the players and their backgrounds, I wouldn't have known that Dallas has these winners because I hadn't pegged them as kind of like a winning team. It feels like they've kind of underperformed in the season. Last couple of years, it seems. Kyrie's always been challenged. Luka's still getting it. But I look at a team like Denver, and I'm like, wow, these guys are winners. There's a system there. It feels like they're just like pros. And I haven't.
You just told me last night Michael Porter Jr. wasn't a winner.
I think he fits in that system. I don't think he's a winner if you go put him. I think he's like Kyle Kuzma or something on the Wizards. If he gets traded to the Wizards or Detroit or something, like I don't think he's like a star. But in that system he works. And you could put Steven Jackson or on the Spurs, and in that system he works. They needed him. But on some whack team he's going to be a chucker or something. So I think Nuggets got winners, and their stars are winners, right? Jokic and Murray. And Mavs, I would love to see it. I'm a Kyrie fan. I'm rooting for him to kind of salvage the potential that people saw in him as like one of the greats, and obviously he's still great. But I hadn't quite seen it. It's almost like the Lakers, right? It's like LeBron last few years, he gets these like, and even in the Cavs, he like gets these players who kind of like, KCP was kind of mixed on the Lakers, but on the Nuggets, he's like cherished, right? Maybe that's too simplistic, but I feel like Mavs are stacked, right? They got all these guys, right? Like Tim Hardaway, I don't know if he's like seventh man or eighth man or something, but he was a big scorer at one point, but it feels like they're just not hadn't put it together yet. So I would love to see this be the playoffs that they do it, because that would shatter my limitation that I'm imposing on them, that it just feels like they're not that team, not to really take it all the way and have the professionalism and winning attitude that is required. But Dan brings up good points about some of these guys' background, and I would love to see PJ Washington or Josh Green or whoever these guys, Derek Jones, really establish themselves as like creating a winning culture, alongside Luka and Kyrie.
Let's quickly jump into the world of hypotheticals. Let's say the Mavs find a way to get past the Nuggets or the Wolves. They play the Celts. How do you think that matchup goes?
I'd certainly be rooting for them.
Because they're the underdog?
Yeah. Well, Kyrie revenge against his former team. Let's see. How does that matchup go? I mean, Celtics just match up so well, right? Drew on Luka.
They got a lot of bodies to throw at Luka, but you're not stopping Luka. I'd say they got a lot of bodies to throw at Kyrie. You probably put Drew on Kyrie. You put Derek White on Kyrie, and you'd shuffle Jaylen Brown and Tatum on Luka, right?
So I like what the Pacers are doing to the Knicks. This sort of like full court press, the whole game, and we'll just like get 10 guys in. And it feels like Mavs have like 10 guys. And Celtics.
Your boy Neesmith.
Yeah, he's doing well. It feels like Celtics have only like 7 guys or something. Like if you're playing Luke Cornett 20 minutes a game, I don't know if that's going to work out for you. Or even Sam Hauser, who maybe I'm underrating. But especially without Porzingis, it feels like they're not deep. So, I don't know if that's the right play, but
you didn't mention Peyton Pritchard, man.
I do like his swag or his style. Do any of you guys think the Mavs match up well against Celtics?
Dan, what do you think?
I guess my down attitude towards the Celtics a little bit has been, Drew Holiday and Derek White are kind of like magicians. And as much respect as I have for Tatum and Brown and the fact that since they were very young players, they've been helping this team advance deep into the playoffs, it just seems like something is off. Like you win a game by 30, then you lose a game by 30. You're high-fiving each other, then you're at each other's throat. Like it just seems like there's speed bumps in everything that they're doing. And sometimes they go flying over the speed bumps and say, wow, this is fun. And then other times they get to the speed bump and they turn around and go the opposite direction. And again, you're not going to, the Horford, Luke Cornett, even healthy Porzingis, Lively, Gafford, PJ Washington, like 7 games, who's going to win all those 50-50 balls? If Horford shoots at the rate he is, then what are we going to say? But I just can't see Horford and Derek White and Drew Holiday. I think the Celtics, they're going to need their rest. They're going to need to win the first 2 at home. And they're going to need to have Tatum and Brown play well in those first 2 games. If that doesn't all happen, then I think Dallas or Denver really makes it interesting.
One other thing I'll flag in that series, and I'm not the first one to say this, many pundits have accused the Celtics of this, is fourth quarter late game performance. And I think when it comes down to brass tacks, I think the Mavs are going to perform better in late game clutch situations because they got Luka. They got the best player.
We'll see. So are we basically assuming that Thunder are out?
No, I think it's going 7.
If it's going 7, the game's in OKC. Thunder could win that.
Anyone could win it. It's game 7.
I think I'm going to say that the way OKC would have to respond would need to kind of be like what happened with the Knicks. Like Daigneault would need to do something with the lineup that they had no scout on. Like starting Kason Wallace or Isaiah Joe instead of Josh Giddey is not shock and awe that's going to throw a team off right away. It would need to be something with a 3-guard small lineup or 4-guard small lineup, or like you said, the Pacers pick up full court and isolate Kyrie in a ball. Like it would need to be something that was very drastic that they could keep going. That they jumped out. OKC jumped out a little bit last game finally after some slow starts, and then Dallas's second unit just responded and pretty much one and wasn't super competitive. I mean, they made some runs, but I want to put it like, oh, I'm worried that they're going to come all the way back. And again, I mean, if Lou Dort and Jalen Williams hit 5 threes each, then what are you going to do? But it's going to have to be something drastic. It's not going to be show up and have the same game plan that they had in the last 2 games.
To that point,
And that's what coaching is. That's what's beautiful about coaching. And if you're Daigneault and it's a young team, I go down in a blaze of glory. I don't go down, just okay, we tried and they were just the better team. I go down like, okay, we're trying to score 150 points, and I don't care if my bench fouls out. We're knocking Kyrie to the ground 17 times, and they're shooting 40 free throws.
Question for you, Dan. To your point, Erik is a very large proponent of the box and 1 or the triangle and 2. Do you feel like that'd be a legitimate strategy in the NBA? I know Nick Nurse has pulled it off a couple times.
Proponent of it in rec sports when the players suck, to be clear.
I think I'm a proponent of, I agree with you, Erik, because I'm a proponent of it at all levels of basketball, because usually teams don't have a third ball handler. And again, if you can funnel the best 2 ball handlers towards an area of the floor that they're not comfortable with, or towards a long defender, then it could work. Again, if you put Chet at the top of a triangle in the triangle and 2, then you're trying to, you're going to give up some lobs, but you're gonna wear Kyrie and you're gonna wear Luka out, and you're going to get some good transition things out of it if you can rebound and Dallas misses corner threes. Box and 1, I think, at the college and the pro level is good, but the good players are just too shifty. Like you can't do it to Brunson, you can't do it to Luka, you can't do it to Kyrie. They don't have a weak hand. They're just going to run you into somebody and eventually get the ball. But again, anytime you're trying to beat a junk defense, it comes down to shooting and getting offensive rebounds. And if you can't commit to both those things and the team sticks to the junk defense, then it can become interesting, especially if they've practiced it and used it before.
Yeah. What happened to Josh Giddey? Is he just like choking before, degrading as a player right before our eyes? Or what's happening there?
So he moves on season S's. He's not an L or I straight line guy. So a lot of it he does by playing with the ball and then reading the defender's feet and then using his physicality to kind of gain the shoulder advantage, and then either get in the paint or get into a step back. And these guys have just stayed down and stayed disciplined and stayed. Even when you watch Kyrie and Luka, one of the reasons they're both such good offensive players is they can actually get into a very wide, strong-legged stance defensively. Their range of motion laterally with their legs is extremely, very, very unique. Like the range of motion with full strength, and I just think that with all these guys that have guarded him, you can play off him, so you're plugging a hole, and then when they watch Luka and Kyrie play with the ball every day in practice, right? So when Josh Giddey's playing with the ball, it's not anything that they haven't seen every day in practice, and he unfortunately just doesn't have a normal game that he can revert to, and if you stick him in the corner, he's really not athletic enough to sprint back and get into position defensively. So he's a not his plus minus, but if he's not getting the ball in an advantage situation in transition, there's really not much that he's bringing to the table. And now his confidence is shook, and he's already had a bad year with all the off court stuff. So I feel bad for him, but that's showing, when you're a big guard, it only gets you so far. It only gets you so far. Both him and Jalen Williams and Lou Dort, like that's great when you're locking people up and teams are only competing at 80% because it's the regular season. But these dudes, this means something to them.
You got to be able to shoot.
Yeah, I mean, he literally looks like he's getting tasered.
Can you for people who are not familiar, which includes myself, can you explain the season S's versus the L concept?
Well, so most people when you look at Jalen Brunson and you look at Kyrie and you look at Luka and you look at Shea Gilgeous-Alexander, they can move. Like I use the letter, like if it's an S if you're snaking a ball screen or you're moving in transition, it's a C if you're going around your defender. They can move on a shape at full speed. If me or any of us three, and I don't know about Frack because I haven't seen him handle the ball. You guys have only shown me clips of him sniping threes. If we move on a letter like a C or an S or a Z, like we're going to have to slow down our body momentum and our speed. And God forbid we would get a little bit of contact, we'd probably decelerate and have to gather ourselves. So like a car or a truck or a football player, when you're moving in a straight line, that's an I, or you're moving in a straight line and then you have one hard stop. Most people can control their maximum power through straight lines. But most people can't control their maximum power and their core stability and drop their shoulder lower or give their shoulder up when they're moving on that C or S. So it's very important in ball screens. It's very important in isolation basketball of getting to the paint. And it's very important in opening the defender's hips and leading the contact or stopping on a dime when we call it winning the foot war, stopping on a dime, getting your feet into the ground first before the defender can gather their own feet to contest you. And again, it's these elite scorers can pretty much all do it, but Josh Giddey, Jalen Williams, and Lou Dort can't because of the size of their upper bodies. And Josh Giddey's case, like most Australians, has a very low set of hips. Like his hips sit very low. His leg ratio is not normal in his wingspan, and hand size is abnormally long. So it's really tough for him to. Again, there's some superpowers, but not superpowers against superpowered defenders.
Yeah, that makes sense. We're 30 minutes in. We haven't yet spoken about the Knicks yet. It wouldn't be a podcast if we didn't. Well, first off, I just want to say it looked really dicey there for a minute when it was 2-2. Pacers, won a close one off a Nemhard, three. Some questionable calls, and then just routed the Knicks for what could have been a 50-point blowout. And then Knicks adjusted with the McBride coming in for Precious, full court on Halliburton, and it looked like Brunson was back, scoring 44, and Isaiah Hartenstein 12 rebounds. We'll see if this effort can be sustained, but it is interesting that there could be as big of a difference from game to game. Pacers won the advantage, the possession battle in terms of rebounds and turnovers previously, and then Knicks routed them the other night. So it'll be interesting to see. I'm hoping, and I believe the Knicks can close it out in 6, but we'll see. Pacers play strong at home, and they are the deeper team right now, unless Alec Burks continues to get 20-point games. What are you guys seeing?
You want to go first, Dan?
I mean, it's easier to play smaller than it is to play bigger when you have to adjust. It's easier to speed people up to gain an advantage than it is to slow people down. Pacers have done it to people all year, so you think that they would have been ready for it. But I don't think they were defensively ready for it, and I don't think that they reacted very well. Halliburton, Naismith, even TJ McConnell was a little bit shaky when the help was just different. The switches were just faster. And Indiana didn't get to the offensive glass, and they didn't take good shots. So for Indiana to be competitive against this current Knicks lineup, they probably need to play a little bit slower. Halliburton probably needs to commit to being more of a shooting guard than his normal game, and again, that's hard because he played so good in the game before that you just I'll get going next quarter. Oh, I'll get going next quarter. Well, you're fighting a different fight. You're boxing against a left-handed boxer now instead of a right-handed boxer. Like, you just can't keep doing the same thing because they're just going to keep jabbing you till you either fall over or till they can knock you out. And for me, I think Thibodeau knew that they were going to have an advantage, and he convinced the Knicks that this was going to be a superpower going small, and they bought it. Now, Carlisle is a hell of a coach, so he's got to convince his guys we need better shots, we need to get to the offensive glass, and when they speed us up, and if we don't have a wide open good shot, let's get the ball to at least the other side of the floor.
I think that, of course, if Brunson is going to outplay Halliburton like he did in that past game, they're going to win the series. We've seen Brunson go supernova like 8 different times so far in the playoffs, and it's amazing. He deserves his flowers. I think the matchup I'm looking at the hardest is that Josh Hart, Pascal Siakam matchup. Siakam's had some incredible games in the playoffs. Ever since Anunoby went out, I think that's been a mismatch, that Siakam versus Hart. He's just a little bit too big, and he took full advantage in the games that they won. And this last one, he was a little bit more passive, and Josh Hart, was just clearly the more physical player. I think in that game that they lost, they got blown out. He had 2 points and 3 rebounds after being a different player in the playoffs than we've seen all season, or just a step above what we've seen, because he's been good. I think he needs to play well, and DiVincenzo needs to, have himself a big time shooting game if they want to advance. So I'm looking hard at those 3 players.
I'm looking something up.
Go for it, Dan.
No, I was just looking something up, so I'm looking down. Go ahead, Erik.
Well, if OG makes it back for Game 7,
is that on the table?
He's out for Game 6. I think it's unclear. He probably stays ACF, but it's an interesting thought experiment of, if he is back, would you start McBride and bench DiVincenzo or Hart so you could benefit from McBride on Halliburton, because it seems like he's played the best defense on him. I don't think Tibbs would do that, because Tibbs rarely benches his top guys, but I might say, hey, let's start with McBride and then get in Dante, 6 minutes in or something, and have him play 35 minutes off the bench, but and time McBride with Halliburton, because McBride takes to sit 6 minutes in, I think. Anyways,
back to the winners thing. I think it's interesting. McBride was a winner his whole life, played for Bob Huggins at West Virginia. So there's like a 7th level of toughness. Precious Achua, who also came off the bench, went to Montverde Academy, played on a very loaded Memphis roster that was very good, and then played for Nick Nurse for a couple years. So I think people in general underscored how ready those guys would be for the moment. Now, to break your heart and to break basketball fans' love for the game, I don't know if OG, even healthy, is going to play, because you just don't risk the injury in the contract years. I would hope that that's not in his heart. I don't think that it is. But I'm telling you that his agent, just like Donovan Mitchell, is probably saying, dude, like, I know your trainers are saying you're 100%, but you got to tell them that it hurts. because you literally have 100. I don't know. I mean, what do you think? What do you think he's worth in a 5-year deal or a 4-year deal?
Over 100 mil.
I mean, clearly over 100, maybe over 150 million. And if you go out there and there's a compensation injury that comes from trying to play injured, it's the Knicks trainer's fault.
Damn, it's a hard truth.
As long as you keep saying your level of pain is a certain amount, and let's face it, the Knicks winning a championship isn't going to get him paid that much more.
Yeah.
And there's people that are paid to play the risk and reward of all of this.
Yeah, you got to keep the long-term view, but man, this might be their only chance. I guess you never know. Erik, to answer your question, I'm not separating the Villanova 3. I think the chemistry is just too good. You got to play them together. Maybe there's a way you can play all 4 of them and put McBride in and have Hartenstein just anchor the defense, I don't know. It'd be a little tough matchup-wise, but Josh Hart plays bigger than his size. So does DiVincenzo.
No, there's 6 guys there. Yeah, I'm saying if OG is playing, who do you?
Not OG. Oh, you said if OG is playing. I'm sorry.
Yeah. If right now they're starting McBride plus Villanova 3 plus Hartenstein.
Got it.
I think McBride's going to be ready for whatever they tell him. Like, yeah, he's. I don't think his ego is like, how can you do this to me? I just killed it. Like, I think he's like, whatever you need for me, I'll run through a wall. And what?
He's fine. I'm just saying, do we need him on Halliburton to start the game, or who's going to guard Halliburton because he's kind of destroyed Josh Hart.
I think we'll know in the first quarter because what adjustments is Indiana going to make?
Right.
Do you ride T.J. McConnell? I mean, Nembhard was awful defensively, and they kept getting him into the switches, and it just, I mean, I know Nembhard's helped them offensively, but if you go under control Halliburton and T.J. McConnell and Naismith and just keep your frontline rotation the same, I think you increase your chances versus having Nembhard out there for another. I don't think Rick Carlisle will lose the same way.
Talk about a winner, T.J. McConnell.
Yeah, why doesn't?
Well, and look, and Nembhard is a winner. He just can't physically, like, he's
too small.
Well, and he's bruised, it's mental.
Yeah.
Trying to figure out what to do with Brunson, so it plays into Indiana's hands if OG comes back, because then the switches and everything kind of goes back to the way that it was, and it's not as much small ball.
Yeah, I don't know why McConnell doesn't play like 35 minutes a game. They switch, and McConnell and Nembhard plays 19 minutes a game or whatever it is.
Might happen.
And I think Nembhard in certain instances has been way better than McConnell and but in this matchup on Brunson, I just think McConnell's experience and his, again, quarterbacking and his leadership in the years of being there, I'd rather lose that way than lose with Brunson scoring 62 and Nembhard falling over 5 times. Like, it could ruin his confidence for the next 5 years.
Yeah. So do you think Knicks win in 6? Do you think Pacers win? Do you think Knicks win in 7? What are your guys? I say Knicks win in 6. What do you guys say?
Dan?
I think the Pacers are going to – I think, again, Carlisle's not going down without a fight. I think they will have something up their sleeve, and then I like the Knicks to pull it out and the same thing in Thibodeau, just like in sensing his players to just be tougher, and the Villanova toughness and everybody in the crowd, and it'll just be beautiful to watch.
MSG is definitely electric. I picked Pacers in 7 at the start of the series. I'm wobbling, but I'm not taking off. I'm not taking away from my pick. Pacers in 7.
Well, if you want to bet, there's I put somebody.
Dude, you want to take money from your own brother?
Here, this is, and I've said this on some of these other podcasts for you guys, with you guys. Like, both Carlisle and Thibodeau are capable of subbing somebody in to set an illegal screen. I'm waiting for it. Somebody's going to do it. Somebody's going to literally take one for the team on Brunson or Halliburton, and it could change the future.
Look out for Isaiah Jackson.
Yeah, Isaiah Jackson, Jericho
Yeah.
Sims, James Johnson.
James Johnson. He's going to come in and karate kick somebody.
They have some guys. The gearing towards closing here, maybe last couple times. Let's spend a minute or a few minutes talking about the Cavs for a second. What do you think about Cavs going into the offseason? If you're the GM, what are you thinking about? Are you making some moves here? Do you have to make some moves? Maybe, Dan, let's start with you because you know the situation a bit better in terms of what are the realities. And so what would you do given those realities?
The truth hurts. Like, they were a better team when guys were injured, like Garland and Mobley played better when Mitchell and Allen were out, or vice versa. And the locker room stuff with Garland and Mitchell wanting to be on ball more. It's an agency battle. Mitchell's represented by CAA, and Garland is represented by Clutch. And that stuff doesn't matter till it matters, and the GM and the coach, if I'm the coach, I want Donovan Mitchell gone because he seems to be the one that started this train. I've said in our chats before that I think that I would trade Evan Mobley as good as he was the other night. I just think with where things are, Jared Allen is the guy that I would stick with, and that you can afford if you want to bring in other people. I don't think that JB Bickerstaff deserves to go. I would give him some say in it based upon it. And again, I would keep Garland and Allen, and I would ask them who else they would want there. I think that's how you remain in the playoffs and advance in the playoffs. Anything else would have a lot of volatility. And with Gilbert probably would have kept Mitchell, but Mitchell's hurt now. Do you want a max? Max. I was listening to someone today saying he'll get a max extension and he'll want to stay in Cleveland because he is hurt, and teams may balk on giving him an offer. But I just, not everything is about value. There's got to be something about culture moving forward for these teams, and my onus is on Mitchell. Again, superstar. I think he's moved into KD mode. His own brand and his own identity, and telling the coach what to do and being loud. And is he a very good player? Yes, but I think I kind of look at, like, it's not a god complex. I think these guys go into Greek mythology complex, if that makes sense. Like, they know they're not basketball gods. They know they're not LeBron. They know they're not Kobe, Michael, whoever we want to say. But they hire somebody, then they start investing in all these businesses, and they get into real estate, and they for the last 5-10 years, these guys have hit home runs in everything that they do. And I feel, me personally, I just feel that's been Mitchell the most. And for when guys have jumped the shark on that stuff, usually the coach, the GM, and the organization suffer. And the player keeps bouncing around, making $50 to now $70 million, and their fans love them because nobody's had the guts to say, nope, see you later.
So, to that end, if you're the Cavs, do you just let Mitchell walk? Do you try to trade?
I think it's a sign and trade. I think you can find somebody, and you can find a number, and you can find a player option in year 3 or a player option in year 4 as a trade-off for the max to get out of the injury. Clearly, the agency is going to go after the max, but if no one's there offering, I'd play hardball. And if he then demands a trade, then you just get him out of there, and he's got to play it out. But he's got to play it out somewhere else.
So what do you try to get for him? Like, if you're the guy, like, what teams do you think want him, and what's a trade you could imagine? Like, you don't try to get Jimmy Butler, do you? Like, what I presume you try to get young people. Like,
yeah. I mean, I'd go after. Brandon Ingram wouldn't be bad. I know he's been talked about on the market, but I would talk to if I kept Garland and Allen, and JB Bickerstaff, I would ask them to target guys. I'd even overpay some guys or give away some future picks because the synergy is the key. It's this, you can't look at it like ESPN trying to drive traffic. You need to look at it like, okay, how do we have a internal culture and an alignment that is going to help us compete for the Eastern Conference Championship over the next 5 years? And the only way you do that is to put some of it into the hands of the superstars you choose.
I agree that I think Mitchell's going to go. I think he's going to a big market. I think everything Dan said is on the money as it relates to that. He's also from New York. If I recall, I think his mom worked for the Mets for a long time. The two teams I've got written down are Brooklyn and Miami. I think Butler's really intriguing. Even though, it's been a little bit tumultuous over the last year, I still think he's an awesome player and he's got that dog mentality. I'd love to see him play alongside Garland and Allen or Mobley. I'm a little more conflicted as to who I'd get rid of between Allen and Mobley. I think they're both great players, and it just sucks that you can't get them together. I'd probably get rid of whoever you can get a bigger haul for and bring in a bunch of shooting. Another name I've got written down, I don't think he's going to go here. I actually think he's going to end up on the Knicks, and I think it'd be great for the Knicks, is Mikal Bridges. You can bring him in. That'd be a really exciting team, and it'd create a really great culture. And this last name I got written down, I'd laugh if it happened. I'm not sure it'd be a great fit for Cleveland at this moment in time, but
Paul George.
LeBron James. Why not?
No, I don't. I joked in the same way in the chat a little bit, but like, it could be the strategy. I mean, the Cleveland Cavaliers owner is in very bad health. The family's taking it over. LeBron can and Redbird and Fenway Sports Group are one level away from every ownership thing that's going on in professional sports. It could easily come to terms where LeBron James says, I want to be traded to Cleveland, and on the back channel, Rich Paul or his organization is setting up for his retirement for the year after he retires. It's illegal. I don't think the NBA could really do anything about it, but for his people to purchase the team, or for somebody that Rich Paul and Maverick Carter and some of his other people are, for them to then purchase the team. And Donovan Mitchell being part of that or part of that trade, again, we're looking at like a 4% chance. But I was
him going to the Lakers.
I was going to say, what about would you take D'Angelo Russell, Rui Hachimura, and Austin Reeves for Donovan Mitchell?
I think if I'm the Cavs, I'm not doing it.
Would be a sign and trade for D'Lo, but at $30 million for 3 years, D'Lo would probably.
But then D'Lo and Garland as your backcourt, it's just
you're the
it's
Cavs,
a turnstile.
But if you have non-spacing bigs, that's what you want. You need. If a motivated D'Lo and Donovan Mitchell played 1-on-1, I don't think it's 10-5.
D'Lo's good 1-on-1. Just when it matters, it's hard to put faith in him.
Should the Cavs just try to get a bunch of picks? Just haul.
That's the classic Erik strategy.
It's the Thunder. I mean, it works. I mean, they're kind of deep, right? You got Garland, Jared Allen, LeVert.
You got to keep LeVert. I love LeVert.
I mean, I don't think you get much for him.
He's so shifty, and I like Okoro too. He can guard, and you got to keep Strus too. He's a winner.
He's a bandwagon shooter.
He's cash.
He didn't make one shot when the game was close unless they were winning by 9.
Yeah, but he can guard. He plays good D. He knows his role. He doesn't overdo it.
The cameras are on him. That's what he knows.
Well, maybe let's wrap on this Cavs topic. The game's about to start. next week we'll get into what will be the Eastern Conference and Western Conference finals, and we'll get into also some offseason stuff from the Suns and Clippers and other teams that have been eliminated. Dan, Reuben, always a pleasure. Until next week.
Much love, guys. Thank you.